Okay, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the CESA HR Forum webinar, where we, in partnership with the BEE Chamber, will be doing a presentation on the BEE or BBBEE BEP subsector codes. I know this was a request end of last year in our HR Forum meeting, that there isn't enough information about the construction sector codes, and all our member firms fit in under that subsector. So we've got Andrew and Paul and Arlene from BEE Chamber, and they're going to help us through this. It's just an hour-and-a-half webinar, so it's not the detailed stuff. And if there is more training that needs to be done, we can always chat to them afterwards. But let me hand over to you, because Paul, because Andrew, because I don't want to take up the time. I think we need to get on with this. Thank you and welcome everybody, and enjoy your session.
Great. Good morning, everyone. Very nice to meet everyone. I don't have visibility of the names of the people who are on the webinar as a result of me sharing screen, but if any of you know me, nice to see you again. If you haven't met me before, very nice to meet you. So you'll see BESA and the BEE Chamber in our logos. BESA is the company that's been around since 2005 doing BBBEE consulting. In 2016, we realized that the environment had changed, so we launched the BEE Chamber, and the BEE Chamber is really about supporting BEE practitioners. We have over 14,000 practitioners on our membership base, and provide information support, development services and training to those practitioners. So today I'm going to take you through the BEP subsector for the construction sector. I just wanted to let you know that if you've got questions, please do feel free to interrupt. The slide deck is not designed to be 1.5 hours, it's designed to be half an hour. And then Paul will take over after that. So it means that we've got some space for questions. If I could ask, obviously, please feel free to do whatever you're most comfortable with, but it would be great if you came off of mute and asked questions directly rather than typing them into the chat. I find that BEE is relatively technical and needs some explanation. Short notes on the message on the, the chat, sometimes is not understood properly. So it'd be great if you can just come off mute and ask a question at any time, and I will endeavor to answer it. If there's anything you ask which is outside of my realm of knowledge, we do have over 60 staff at the Chamber, and we'll take a note. In fact, Paul can help me there. He'd take a note and then we'll get back to you separately. Great, so let's kick off. So I'm going to talk to you about the environment that we're playing in, which is quite complex and has given us, as the Chamber, many sleepless nights. So first off, the custodian of BBBEE is the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition. They have a joint technical committee between the three offices that look after BEE, and they're meant to meet every 2 weeks. Obviously, COVID had a major impact on that. So the three offices that look after various aspects of BEE are the DTI's BBBEE unit. They effectively look after the legislation, Codes of Good Practice Act, etc. Then we've got the BBBEE Commission, who looks after anything to do with interpretation and investigation. Measured entities, those are, by the way, a measured entity is any company which is claiming BEE points, so that they are deemed to be a measured entity because they're measured under the codes. Measured entities are meant to engage with the BBBEE Commission on issues of interpretation, and obviously they engage with measured entities on issues of investigation. Then we have SANAS, and SANAS took on the role of accrediting verification agencies, which are the agencies that measure BEE and issue the certificates, and verification agencies are meant to engage with SANAS. Verification agencies, only measured entities, not really meant to engage with SANAS directly, but there are some instances where we would do that on behalf of our. So as the Chamber, we basically are a back office of specialists and experts in BBBEE to our members, and we will engage and uncover and plot the complex path to clarity on any issues that our members have in this environment that you're looking at the moment. So that's just a bit of a sort of a summary of the environment we're playing in, the stakeholders, and there is a bit of power struggle between the Commission and the BBBEE unit. We actually have had to set up an entire office within the Chamber to actually manage that, that stakeholder environment. If we get into the amended construction codes, you will know if you've been around, and this has been around a while, so it should not be new information, but we basically have 3 different enterprise types that are defined as having to comply with the construction sector code. The construction sector code is released under the Act, but also aligned to the codes of good practice. So the codes of good practice are issued for general companies to apply to who don't have a sector code. And what's really important to note is if a sector code is silent on an issue, you still have to refer back to the general codes. A lot of people don't do that or know about that. Your sector codes are effectively like a tracing paper sort of overlay onto the actual codes themselves. So if your sector code says something, then it takes precedence. But if it doesn't say something or it's silent on something, then you have to refer back to the general codes. And in this case, we're talking about 3 different enterprise types. We've got the contractors, we've got the suppliers into the construction sector, and that does cause confusion. And then you've got your BEP, built environment professionals. Today, we're going to be covering and focusing on built environment professionals, but what's important to note is that a lot of companies that are in the construction supply chain may be still measured on the general codes because they don't understand that they actually are meant to be measured on the construction sector codes. In this space, we have different hierarchies of company, in other words, sizes. And so we start with the exempted micro enterprise. The name is important. The reason it's exempted is because you don't have to be measured on a scorecard. It's exempted from being measured. Micro because it's smaller than small, and then enterprise obviously because it is an operating trading entity. So it's an exempted micro enterprise, EME. The general codes, and I always refer to general codes as well as BEP because remember you have to look through, but the general codes are anything less than 10 million Rand turnover per annum. But the BEP codes are 6 million Rand or less. Will qualify you in terms of annual turnover to qualify as an EME. Qualifying small enterprise is the next size up. So in the general codes, that's between 10 and 50 million. It's called a qualifying small enterprise because of turnover. So your turnover is in the BEP between 6 and 25 million. If you sit between that on your annual turnover, then you would qualify as a QSE. Anyone who is sitting halfway through the year and is about to turn over 25.1 or 24.9 million, we have a bit of a challenge because you may be needing to be measured on the large enterprise scorecard or the QSE scorecard, and that may change your score. So there are a few things that we can do to help in that environment. In that case, if you are one of those companies, do let us know. And by the way, over the COVID lockdown, we had lots of companies changing from large entities, enterprises to QSEs and vice versa, simply because of the impact on their turnover. So managing, planning and forecasting for that kept us quite busy over the last 2 years. Finally, we've got the large enterprises in the general codes. It's 50 million plus. In the BEP code, it's 25 million plus. Now, what's critical about that is just to understand that each of these categories or types of enterprise get treated differently under BBBEE, which I'm going to go into now. An EME has an automatic status. An EME being the micro company that's exempted gets an automatic status. They cannot get measured on a scorecard to get a certificate or a BE level unless they elect to specifically. I'll take you into that in a second. So first things first, we're going to go through and see what influences what level. We've got less than 30% black ownership. That results in, on the general codes, it would be a level 4, but in the BEP sector, you get a level 5. Anything between 30 and 51% black ownership you get a level 4 in the BEP sector codes. Anything above 51% black ownership, you get a level 2, and 100% black owned EME gets a level 1. So these are automatic statuses, but that also can detriment you. You could be, for example, a 25% black owned or a 0% black owned EME and stuck with a level 5 and having to compete in the market with an EME that's 100% black owned with a level 1. So that would be a challenge. So in the codes, it does give you the allowance to increase your levels through certain criteria, which I'll take you through. An EME may enhance the automatic recognition level by the following means. Number one, be verified as a QSE. Remember I said at the beginning, an EME must be an EME, but you can choose to be measured as a QSE. And if you choose to be measured as a QSE, you've got to adopt the QSE scorecard. You've got to make all your contributions, plan across your 12-month measurement period, get an auditor in to issue your certificate, and then you get whatever you get. You can also increase by 1 level. Remember, we're now talking about these levels here, the level 5, 4, 2, and 1. You can now increase by 1 level if the EME scores full points for skills development expenditure on the Black people measurement category on the QSE scorecard. So this is what the QSE scorecard looks like for expenditure on Black people. In order to get a 1 level increase, so you could be that 0% Black owned, basically non-Black EME, you would be getting yourself a level 5 automatically. If you spent 1.5% of total payroll, you would then be able to get 14 points if you were a QSE. But as an EME, it means you go from a level 5 to a level 4. So you get a 1 level increase. You also have the option of getting a 1 level increase by committing to and expending supplier development contributions. Again, it's referred to in the QSE scorecard. So 1% of your net profit after tax can get you 1 level increase if it's invested in the right way. It must be supplier development, so contributions to your supplier. And there are rules around supplier development. So the number of beneficiaries, the total turnover of those beneficiaries, we have to look at all of that and make sure that that's compliant. And then you can get yourself 1 level. So that, I'm just taking it as example as the lowest one. The sort of non-Black owned EME would go from a 5 to a 4 if they did this, but they can also do both. So they can do the investment into skills development and they can do investment into supplier development, and they can move from a 5 to a 4 to a 3. So a 5 can become a 3 by committing to these 2 activities. Otherwise, the only other way you can get up your level is to go to a QSE, and then you can go to any level you want. Please feel free to interrupt if you've got questions. As I said, I can't see the chat comments.
Sorry, can I ask a question there on this last point you've got? You're not allowed to double dip. So say if a member firm puts a supplier that they are developing, their SD, on the BCE development program, which is a year program to develop a consulting engineer or whatever, but they are on the supplier development program, they can't get points for skills development and supplier development contribution. Is that correct?
That's a great question, by the way. So that's not actually double dipping. So, but you're right on the double dipping. So what double dipping means, and it's a phrase that has come out of somewhere. So it's not actually double dipping. What it means is double claiming. So you're not allowed to spend R1 and claim it twice. However, you can have one company that you give supplier development benefit to, skills development benefit to, can be a supplier to you and claimed under procurement. So that's not double claiming. That's simply using the same beneficiary for different types of activity. But you can't say I've given R1 and I'm claiming it as supplier development and I'm claiming as skills development. You have to spend that R1 twice. Does that make sense?
Okay. All right.
Can I ask a question?
Morning, Joe. Yes, please do.
Hi. We've gone through this whole process a couple of times, and at the end of the day, I just think that the problem with the skills development expenditure component was only certain courses or certain things were accepted. And as a BEP, you want the items to be relevant to what our company actually does. You don't want to be teaching somebody how to cut grass. And that's the problem that we found with the skills development courses that were offered to our firm. I don't know if I've jumped.
Yes.
Certainly I can answer that one, Andrew, and then I'd like your reply to that. But being the head of the School of Consulting Engineering, all CPD courses that are validated with CESA, SACP, CMP, and all your statutory bodies are claimable on your BE scorecard. That must be first claimed on your WSP ATR. And then Andrew, thanks. I'd like you to answer that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So what we do have is challenges in terms of skills development courses, just generally, not just for BEPs, but generally finding good quality courses, et cetera, But there are definitely courses out there which qualify for each of your categories, depending if you're a large enterprise or a QSE scorecard measured entity. It's just a case of uncovering them. We do have a skills development desk at the Chamber. We don't charge our members for this, and we will source courses for you with no cost. I'm pretty sure that CESA is also able to do something similar. I don't know what the services are, but there are definitely courses out there that will make sense to your business. I think the biggest challenge is obviously the research and finding them. I don't know how much research was done to uncover those courses. And then, of course, there's the challenge of, actually getting courses that really do add value to the people who are participating on them for their job requirements. Now, that's where most companies are struggling. Most companies are not looking at return on investment from skills development. They are more looking at budget expenditure. They do their IDP, PDP type process in individual development plans, for example. And they identify courses and they put people on courses, but they don't really measure the impact that those courses have had, what return on investment was achieved. They're really doing them because they've got to spend training money or they've got to get BE points. So if you are one of those people, Karen?
The construction charter is the only one charter that mentions CPD, and that falls under C.2, continual professional development, recognized learning that results in CPD points from an industry professional registration body. So that's why the registrational body is CESA, the QSs, the architects, and all that. And if you're looking for courses, CESA, School of Consulting Engineering, all our courses are validated through CESA and a few with SACP, CMP. So the construction charter has taken CPD into account under C2, page 41. Okay, I'll attach this codes as well.
I think we're talking past each other. And I'll tell you what,
that's what I was thinking.
CPD is not the problem. The problem is to upskill the level of Black people, and unfortunately, most of those Black people are not registered with CESA. And I'm thinking specifically of people like draftsmen who have got the necessary experience, but don't have the necessary paperwork to even register with CESA. And this is where the skills development expenditure is a real challenge for us. We've actually given up.
Okay, all right. So you actually not registering with CESA because we have member firms. You're saying with CESA or one of the statutory bodies, or just registering with CESA, electrical, mechanical, electrical. But yeah, I think you're talking about they haven't been to university. They've got like a TVET college qualification, and you'd like them registered with CESA as a PR something.
No, I don't need to register them as anything. That's not the argument. The argument is I need to spend money, as Andrew has already said. I want to spend money on them because I need to spend skills development expenditure, and I'd like to genuinely upskill the people. But like I said, I don't want to take a draftsman and teach him how to lay roads. That's ridiculous.
Okay.
So, Joe, I think the answer is that this is about sourcing the right courses. And does CESA offer that kind of a service of sourcing courses for members or not?
Yes, we do. And we have the year program called the Business of Consulting Engineering, which has the business modules. But I don't want to take up your time here. Let's carry on and I can chat to Joe afterwards. Kirsten, I see your mic is off. Do you want to ask a question? Kirsten? Okay. Let's carry on.
Okay, great. So we've also then got the next level up, which is your qualifying small enterprises, as you know now. And there we get automatic levels if we are more than 51% Black owned. If we, however, are less than 51% Black owned, then we have to use the QSE scorecard to determine our level. So as per verification, you'll see there. But if it's 51% Black owned up to 99% Black owned, it's a level 2 automatic status. And then a QSE, which is 100% Black owned, gets an automatic level 1. Yet again, that would be an unfair environment because you might end up in as a QSE 51% Black owned having to compete against the level 1s. So we have the same kind of environment again for QSEs where we can increase our level if we need to. So a 51% Black owned QSE may enhance the automatic level by the following means. Please note this is only the 51% Black owned QSEs because the people who are being measured on scorecards can determine their level all the way through to a level 1. Increase 1 level if the QSE scores maximum points on the skills development element. This is the skills development element of the QSE scorecard. If you score full points on this, you can get a 1 level increase. Remember that this is an automatic status, so you would typically not be doing any of this. You would be getting an automatic level 2. So you would then have to adopt this scorecard specifically, do everything, secure full points, and then you can move to a level 1. The same thing for the procurement and enterprise and supplier development section. You can choose to adopt this particular scorecard, so not the entire BE scorecard, just this one, and you can then increase from the level 2 to level 1. If you are an EME or QSE with at least 51% Black ownership, you need to get verified. So in other words, it's not just simple as signing an affidavit because you've got to get your enhanced levels checked if you're doing your enhanced levels that we spoke about, and you've got to look at your skills development priority elements as well. There are exceptions to these requirements for a verification. The exemptions are for EMEs with turnovers of less than 1.8 million as a BEP, where no enhanced recognition is claimed, so you're not going for that increase in level, and then only an affidavit or CIPC certificate would suffice. So it kind of goes to 1.8 and then everyone over the top of that. Are there any questions on that before I move on? Okay, I'll assume silence means no questions, so we'll...
Sorry, Andrew.
Oh, yes.
Hi, morning, it's Flavia. I just want to ask, with regard to the QSE, if you are 100% Black-owned company, I saw you say there's automatic level 1, but I just want to find out how much does the turnover of the company have any influence on the level if you are 100% Black-owned company?
Flavia, a very good question. So back here, you'll see the turnover limitations. So you can only be a QSE if you have an annual turnover of between 6 million and 25 million. If you're below 6 million, you're an EME, but you can opt to choose to do the QSE scorecard if you want. And if you're over 25 million, you're a large entity and you cannot use any other certificate or any other scorecard apart from a large entity's scorecard. Does that answer your question?
Okay, yes, it does, but I just want to find out, so if, let's say the turnover is more than 25 million and you fall in the large enterprises, so that is there automatic level 1 if you are 100% Black-owned company, or the turnover of the company plays a role when it comes to the large enterprises?
Any company which is a large enterprise has to be measured on the large enterprise scorecard. Doesn't get any automatic levels at all, but obviously your black ownership will go towards your score on your ownership section of your scorecard. And if you're a 51% black owned company, you'll get the benefit of having that status when your customers claim against you. So they get additional benefit for buying from either a 30% black woman owned or a 51% black owned company. Does that answer your question?
Yes, that answers my question. So which means if on skills development and supply development, we didn't spend much as a large company, there's a chance that we can end up as a level 2 or a level 3.
You could even end up as a level 8. So it all depends on how many points you get. If you look here, let's say you're a BEP and you're a large BEP. There are 27 points available for ownership plus 4 bonus points here. But, in order to score, and I'm not sure, I've got it here. In order to score a level 8, you need to have between 40 and 55 points. So if you've got 40 and 55 points to get a level 8, which is the first level after non-compliance, and you give your customers 10% benefit of what they spend with you as their claim on their scorecard, that means we need 40 points minimum. So if I go back here, your black ownership is going to get you at least some of these points, because obviously there's a scorecard for ownership, which includes black women and various other things. So let's just say that you've got all these points. You still need to score up to 40 points just to get to a level 8. So if you haven't done and managed these other areas, then obviously, you're not going to get very high on this scorecard environment. If you do, and you have black directors, which I should assume you would, you've got black employees, you're spending money on training these employees, etc., then maybe you're up to now a level 5 or a level 4. But as soon as we get to 5 or 4, we kind of break these down into high, medium, and low performing BEE companies. High performing companies are 1 to 3. And the reason we call it high performing is because as soon as you go above a 4, it gets really difficult to get these points. You have to plan, you have to really have budget, you have to have all the right things in place. A medium performing company is a 4 or a 5. There, it's pretty challenging to get there, but you can do that without necessarily all the systems and policies and things in place. And then a low performing would be your 8s, 7s, and 6s. So these would be, and sometimes we even say 8 and 7, and we put 6 into the medium, depending on which industry we're looking at. So that kind of gives you an indication of sort of where companies start to feel the pressure. They start to feel the pressure going from 7 to 6. Then they should have everything in place to be able to move to a 5 and a 4. It's not necessarily easy, but when they're at a 4, moving to a 3 is probably a bigger challenge than most. And then it's just majorly hard. 3 to a 2 is hard, 2 to a 1 is hard. So that's kind of just a summary of sort of if you're having to use the large scorecard to score your points, that's kind of how we break down the levels. Have you got any questions on that, Flavia?
No, thank you.
Pleasure. So, I mean, you brought us quite nicely into the next slides, which is basically showing that we have a BEP large scorecard, which is not the same as a BEP QSE scorecard. You can see there are different points available. Even the total points are not the same. So you have to...
Sorry, can I ask a question?
Yeah, there was a question. I wanted to just bring you in there.
Right.
And Rosetta has also got a question.
Oh, okay. It's Nolu
Nolu?
from Nolu from Robust this side. I just want to take you back a little bit. What's the process for electing to be on the QSE? And that's just one question. And another part of my question is, as you've spoken about some companies dropping or changing from maybe large enterprise to QSE and all that. What's the process? Is it just automatic if you, for instance, now get your turnover to be below the level that you like, the one that you've been, if you've been in QSA and now you, according to your BEP, you are less than 6 million due to the COVID effects and all that? Like, what's the process around there and what effect does it have on your BEE levels?
Good. So two good questions. One is what's the process for an EME electing to be measured on a QSE scorecard? And the other one is there a process if you change? In other words, you were a large enterprise and you moved to a QSE, or you were a QSE and you moved to a large or EME. So the answer to the first one is there's no specific process that you have to follow to elect to be measured on a QSE scorecard if you're an EME. However, your process would be internal, because you would need to understand the QSE scorecard, understand your budget requirements. So how much do you need to spend on training? How much do you need to spend on enterprise development, supplier development, socioeconomic development? And you would need to have made those contributions in your measurement period. And the measurement period, by the way, used to be open to any 12 months, but it's now specifically your financial year. So whatever your financial year end is, let's say it's February, that becomes your BE measurement period as well. So you have to make these contributions and do all of your activities, and I'll break this down for you in a bit more detail, in that 12-month measurement period. And when the 12-month measurement period to end of Feb, for example, is over, you then engage the auditor and say, hi, we'd like you to come and audit us. They'll give you a list of documents and data that they need. You provide that documents and data to them. They then review all of that and confirm your points. They give you sort of an indicative scorecard, which you then can negotiate and see if you've missed something or they've missed something. And then they issue your certificate, and your certificate is valid for 12 months going forward. So that your measurement period is 12 months to end of Feb, as an example. You would then prepare for your audit and go through your audit, which may be April, May. Your certificate will be issued in May or June, and your certificate will be valid for 12 months until you come back to an expired certificate a year later, where you should have gone through the process again to make sure that you've got your level. So, but there is no process to notify anyone that you are moving to a QSE. You just have to contract a verification agency to come and measure you. But obviously, your internal process will determine what, that you've done enough to get your levels. The second question, the second point I wanted to make clear is that not all of the elements are measured at the same time. So you can see the scorecard on my screen. If you go from the bottom up, you've got socioeconomic developments. All of those things there are called enterprise and supplier development, so enterprise development, supplier development, preferential procurement, and skills development. Everything up to skills development is measured on that 12-month measurement period. So if your year end is February, it'll be March to February. However, ownership and management control is measured on the date of measurement. In other words, it's on the date that you are having your audit. So just slightly different timing for those you need to be aware of. Can I just check that you can hear me clearly? Because I've got a strange notice on my screen.
No, we can hear you very clearly. We can hear you.
Amazing. Good. So yeah, just important technical issues to be aware of. And then the second question was, what happens if you are changing turnover for whatever reason? You lose a contract or COVID kicks in or whatever. And the answer is it's quite difficult, because you need to forecast and plan for a change in your level in BE. So if you're turning over, let's say 5 million, 4 million, and suddenly you get a big contract and you can forecast that you're going to go now to 10 million, then you need to be planning for your QSE scorecard, or you need to be 51% black owned to still continue to sign an automatic status affidavit. If you're a large company and you drop below you move to a QSE, you need to be planning for what the different points are. But at that stage, a lot of the stuff is quite similar. Your targets slightly change. But you should kind of be on target to get the same kind of points. But you do need to look at it, because there might be some things that have changed that specifically move you one level up or one level down. But you don't need to inform anyone. You don't need to register. It's simply about going in to your verification agency, telling them your turnover, and then they measure you on that particular scorecard. I hope I answered your question.
Yes, thank you, Andrew.
We have a question from Rosetta. Rosetta, there we go.
Good morning, thank you. I just want to make sure that, say for instance, your gross is 8 million for the year, then you will automatically be then EME on the level 2 if you've got a 51% Black ownership. And
asking. Sorry, Karen.
Sorry, do you still have to do then the scorecard of SDL and procurement?
No. So if you're an EME, as stated here, and you're more than 51% Black owned, you get a level 2. If you want to increase your score, your level to a level 1, then these are the options that we went through. And then if I just go to here, if you're an EME or QSE with at least 51% Black ownership, which is the situation you're proposing, then you need to get verified only if you are trying to get your level enhanced or the skills development priority element specifically. So is there a specific question around that?
Yes, because we were a QSE and we, but during COVID, we dropped tremendously below 10 million. So I just need to know if we need to do the scorecards with the SDL and the procurement still to do a level 2.
Yes, unless your turnover is as per this less than 1.8 million, then you just sign the affidavit.
Okay,
so
thank you very much.
What your turnover went to?
It went to 8 million. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So it's more than 1.8 million, yeah.
Okay, so we have to do this then.
Yes. Are there any other questions?
I don't see any more hands up. And Rosetta, can you just take down your hand? And then if anybody else has got a question.
Okay, good.
I think we can carry on.
Great. So just as I said before, very important to note what your measurement period is if you're going to be measured actually on the scorecard, and the fact that measurement against your measurement period, which is 12 months aligned to your financial year, is only applicable from socioeconomic development up to skills development, and that your ownership and management control is measured on the date of measurement, which means that even after the end of your financial year end, you can still manipulate your score by changing your management control or ownership. That's a positive. Then the negative, if your ownership changes because someone exits, for example, a shareholder exits the deal, then your points can actually obviously drop. The other thing you need to know is if there is a significant or material change in your ownership or your board across the year that you have your certificate for, you are meant to inform your agency so that they can make those adjustments to your certificate so you don't false claim. Not many companies do that, but then there's not many changes throughout the year as well. I did go through this quite quickly just to make sure we're aware that there are a certain number of points you need for a different scorecard that gives you a certain level. What I wanted to spend a bit of time on is just understanding the recognition level. So on the right-hand side, if you're a level 8, you offer your customers 10% of your invoice value that they can claim on their procurement score. Whereas if you are a level 1, you offer them 135% of the value of your invoice. And by the way, the invoices have to be matched to your certificates. So on your certificate, you'll find your registration number, in some cases tax number, and on your invoice, you'll find the same thing. So it's really important that if you've got a complex environment, you've got more than one company, that you're not using the wrong certificate for the wrong invoices. That does happen quite regularly in a complex environment. Priority elements with sub-minimums. So just so you know, we have got 3 priority elements. A priority element means a place that we need to really focus on investing in as a South African economy. It's where we incentivize to do something. And the objective here is to achieve 40% of the targets to avoid being discounted by 1 level on our BEE certificate. So on the scorecard, we've got to achieve 40% of the target in order to avoid being discounted by a level on the BEE certificate. And though the 3 areas for priority elements are ownership, skills development, preferential procurement and supplier development as an example. Large enterprises have to comply with all three of these sub-minimums that we have to achieve. QSEs have to comply with ownership, and that's specifically making sure that we've achieved 40% of the target on ownership. And then they can choose one other. So where large enterprises have 3 priority elements, QSEs only have 2. One of them has to be ownership, and you can choose the other one. Again, I'm open to questions. I'll just carry on going until there are questions. Automatically recognize QSEs, skills development. We've spoken about these aspects. Automatically recognize EMEs, skills development, spend on Black people indicator only. Again, I've covered this. Automatically recognize EMEs with enhanced level skills development, spend on Black people indicator only. So I think this is just a repetition of the first slide. And I've mentioned penalty. Missing the sub-minimum target means that your level gets reduced by 1. By the way, you don't get reduced by 2 or 3 levels. You have to achieve either the 3 sub-minimums or the 2 sub-minimums. And if you achieve that, you don't get discounted. If you miss 1, 2, or 3, you only get discounted by 1 level. These are the sub-minimums, just to give you some detail around sub-minimums in each of those. So at least 40% of the net value points. What's important to note on ownership is that it's not the voting rights or economic interest. If you guys know your scorecards, you'll know that ownership is split into 3 areas. So the discount is only applied to net value. Net value is the difference between the asset value of the share and the acquisition debt. So if someone had to go and borrow money from the bank or from some third party, and they borrowed R1 million to buy the shares, for example, that would be your acquisition debt. Let's say that the shares were worth let's say R2 million. So the net value would be the difference between the acquisition debt of R1 million and the asset value of the share, R2 million. So the net value there would be R1 million. That means if that individual was to sell their shares, they would get R2 million through the door, but they'd have to pay out R1 million, and they would retain R1 million themselves. That's your net value. So there's a whole time-based graduation formula for this. But what you need to know is that you need to plan, if you're doing an ownership deal, to make sure that you get at least 40% of the points for net value specifically, which means it's the funding element of ownership, in order to avoid being discounted by 1 level. On skills development, at least 40% of the total points for skills development. And on preferential procurement and supplier development, at least 40 points of each of preferential procurement, enterprise development, and supplier development. That should give you an idea.
And Andrew?
Yeah.
Just a question on ownership. It's more a question to CESA and just confirmation, you cannot remain a member of CESA if your 51% ownership is not registered, correct?
They have to be registered. I'd have to just check, but I know it's got to do with registration of other professions as well, not just engineering. But I'll come back to you by the end of the session on that.
Yeah, because that's one of the problems we have. One of our engineers who's an electrician with 40 years experience. I mean, the registration process is obviously very difficult for him, but we can't increase he can't increase his ownership because then we lose our membership, which is also not the way we want to go.
Yeah. No, that one I'll get more information and probably give feedback via email to everybody, because you've raised a very good point about the electrician who's had 40 years experience. But I don't have the answer by the end. I will come back to everybody on that question.
Thank you.
Okay, just opening up the floor to any general questions you may have. Please do feel.
Hi, Andrew. It's Flavia again from TS. Hi, Andrew.
Can hear you, Flavia.
You can hear me. I just have a quick question. I saw on the priority elements, you've got 3. I wanted to just find out, has the corporate social investment element been taken out? Are we not supposed to be gaining points on that? I know at some point we were getting points for corporate social investment activities. So that was my first question. My second question is almost similar to what Joe was asking. I just want to find out, in terms of the ownership, does the registration with CESA of the owners have an impact? If, let's say, there are two members owning the company and it's 50-50 and only one is registered as an engineer with CESA, does that have an impact on the BEE allocation of points?
I think I can take the first one. When you talk about social investment, in BEE terms, it's called socioeconomic development, SED. And SED is there, but it's not a priority element. So in other words, you won't get discounted by one level on the B certificate if you don't invest in SED, for example. But you do have points for SED. So if you do invest in SED, that'll contribute to your total score. So the only point there is, in terms of priority elements, is normally there are 5. If you take into account combination of preferential procurement, enterprise development, supply development into one, there are 5 elements that you look at, but there are only 3 priority elements. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Maybe if I hand the other question over. Was that question to CESA or to me? Sorry, I'm not sure who that question was.
To you. It was to you. I just wanted to find out, in terms of the ownership, does the registration of professional registration of the members have an impact on the allocation of points for ownership?
Yes, but again, it's a complex issue. So we would need to look at your ownership structure. I know you've said in your case you've got 2 people with 50%. We would need to look at the ownership structure and make sure that you qualify in terms of the registered owners, black owners, in terms of the target. Again, it changes from QSE to large again. So we would need to look at the detail to answer your question.
Okay, thank you.
Pleasure. Any other questions?
Hello, yes, I'm Teresa here. I also want to just get back to the professional registrations.
Yes.
Now, one of our headaches currently at the moment is the Construction Sector Charter Council. In terms of the list of recognized professional registrations, it's impossible to get hold of the Construction Sector Charter Council, and through numerous communications, we've actually come to the conclusion that they're currently not an operating body. Now, if we would want to go about getting a professional registration or a particular professional registration listed on the CESA list, how would we go about doing that? Because it's really a risk for us, specifically if we're below the 50% threshold in order to qualify on the ownership percentages. And it's quite something to try and get hold of that charter council, as I think since COVID, they actually haven't been operating.
Yes,
so
correct.
I don't know
this
if
is
you
a
have
problem.
any advice. Sorry, I don't know if you have any advice on that.
It's a problem that has been reported a number of times to us over the last 2 years or so. Obviously, COVID had certain restrictions on various operations across South Africa. I'm not going to obviously go into that, but one of the challenges was getting access to some of the charter councils, and it wasn't just for construction sector, it was others as well. And to try and get hold of them and get anything done as well at that time. So some actually responded quite well, others didn't, and the CSCC did not respond well. We have, however, managed in the past 2 years to communicate with various members. Your statement that it's not an operating council is not far off the truth, but we can actually liaise with some of the people who are able to assist us. We've got a compliance desk headed up by Unil Padiachi. For those of you who don't know him, he was in SANAS and the BE policy unit for many years. And he has a network which is able to possibly assist if you need something done. Again, I can't guarantee what they can do, but we can definitely get in touch with them. So if you would like some assistance, please do let us know.
Thank you. Thank you. We'll definitely be in contact.
Pleasure, Teresa. Any other questions? By the way, this is not the end of the presentation. This is the end of my presentation. So I'm going to be handing across to Paul in a minute or so. So if you've got questions for me on the technical side, please feel free to ask now. Otherwise, you can ask Paul any other questions. Great.
Oh, Pedro, you're breaking up. Pedro, you're breaking up with your signal.
Maybe Pedro can use the chat function.
Yeah, Pedro, put your question in the chat and then I'll relay the message across.
Great. Very nice to have met you all. I hope there was some value, and please feel free if you've got specific questions which maybe are not to be asked in a public forum, feel free to engage with us. Paul's probably your best point of contact to start off with, and then he can direct you to the right person in the chamber. I'm going to hand across to Paul now, so thank you very much for your time.
Great. Thank you very much, Andrew. Appreciate your valuable input there. I must say, every time I listen to Andrew, I learn a great deal. So, Andrew, thank you. I'm going to share my screen. Give me 1 second. And what I'm going to be talking about is the BE chamber. Now, the BE chamber exists to be able to build up and empower the practitioners within your organization. Just give me a second. I'm sorry to share and okay. So you should be seeing my BE chamber screen.
It's not on the full screen.
It's
It's still on that one. There we go.
There we go. Okay, great, fantastic. Right, so the BE chamber exists because we had the same request from a lot of our customers, which was really to have a forum, a place to be able to empower the practitioners. But let me, before I even get into that, let me just say that our solutions that we offer as the BE chamber are for generic sized companies and above. So we don't really have a solution for EMEs or for the QSEs. So really, if you are 25 million and above and you qualify as a large enterprise or generic enterprise within the BEP space, then I'll be speaking to you at this point. Unfortunately, at the moment, we don't have a solution, a software solution and a solution for the EMEs and QSEs. So the chamber was put in place to be able to meet the needs that our customers had requested, to be able to empower the practitioners. A lot of companies had moved across to consultants, and then they realized that there was a lot of terms of data. There was a lot of IP sitting outside their company, and often the companies weren't aware of what was happening between the consultants and the verification agents. So we had our founding members, we put together the chamber to be able to meet these needs within the industries. The other driver behind this were the changes to the BE codes, to the commissioner, the BE Act, and some of the notes that came out from the commissioner. So in terms of the BE Act, the commissioner wanted to clamp down on fronting. They found there's a lot of fronting happening within the environment. They need a legal remedy around that, and there are currently about 200 cases sitting in the Gauteng High Court around fronting. Part of that was to define what fronting is, what fronting isn't. So there's obvious fronting and there's not so obvious fronting, and this is where the pitfalls lie sometimes. Obvious fronting would be maybe you've taken the driver and listed them as an owner or director without their knowledge, and I think we'd all agree that's fronting. But the not so obvious fronting could be a donation where you've got the wrong depreciated value. You've donated computers to a school, you've got the wrong depreciated value, and you've gained points you're not entitled to. That's fronting. One of our specialists said to me the other day that a case where somebody signed an affidavit, took to the police station. The queue was too long. They went back the next day, got it signed, submitted the documents, and forgot about it. Now, when it went through to verification, there was a date mismatch on the documentation. That's considered a fronting risk. So that had to be highlighted as a fronting risk to the commissioner. So often, a lot of the fronting issues can be unknown, and sometimes you have to have a specialist to be able to identify these issues and help you through that. Because according to this note, R4703, says several things. It says that your verification agent cannot give you guidance. So in the past, if you had an issue with an affidavit, incorrect dates or date mismatch, then your VA might say to you, look, go and fix this, come back and try again. Now, if that occurs, they cannot do that. They have to actually highlight that as a risk. What it also says is that your consultant or third party cannot be the interface between you and your verification agent. And this still happens every day. I speak to customers every day, and they have handed over all responsibility to a third party or a consultant who then negotiates with the VA on their behalf. And that's not allowed. The practitioner, so the responsible party within the measured entity, has to take full responsibility for all of the points in your scorecard, which means that you have to negotiate directly with your verification agent and not via a third party. So all of this puts a lot more pressure and a lot more accountability on the practitioner within the measured entity. And that's what the BE Chamber exists to be able to address. We're here to empower and skill up the practitioners to make sure that it reduces the risk to you and that you're able to be in full control of your scorecard. So we have a couple of hundred members in the chamber, ranging from different company sizes, different industries. We have some lovely testimonials. I won't read those all out to you. And our membership, yes. Sorry. I can't see if anybody has their hand up. So please just
no, I've just unmuted myself. Paul, if you go back to your comments about interface, I know you're dealing with the bigger corporates at the moment and not the small EMEs and the below 6 million story. But what you're saying is very concerning, because we're a small firm. I mean, I'm the so-called practitioner, but I mean, if I spend, 2 hours a month on it, it's a lot. It's just a matter of us sending paperwork through to a company, and then they send it all through to the BEE rating agency for verification. Now, what you're saying is they can't do that anymore, or is this only for the bigger corporate kind of environment?
Well, if it's a case of an affidavit, then that's not really a problem. But what we speaking about specifically is for the ratings. So we have to go through a verification and a rating and a scorecard. You as the practitioner have to then deal directly with the verification agent. Even if you're using a third party, which a lot of companies do, but that third party cannot take responsibility for your points. Because what was happening often in the past was, if a fronting offense was uncovered, the company would blame the consultant because, we gave you all the information. The consultant would blame the company, saying, well, you gave us the wrong information. And, there was always a finger pointing exercise. So the commissioner said basically that all ends, the responsibility sits entirely within the practitioner, within the measured entity. So even in your case, you would have to take full responsibility for whatever declarations or affidavits or whatever you're reporting on to the
But we do that anyway, because I have to sign everything and send it through.
Right. And well, then you should be fine. I mean, if you're taking that direct responsibility, that's fine. But what does happen in the industry a lot is that people have got other things to do. They are not full-time doing their BEE, and so they just get a pile of documents, give it to the consultant, and say, listen, run with it, and come back when you have a certificate. So that's really not allowed, because the responsibility and the knowledge has to sit with the practitioner. And it really is about accountability, and BE is technically voluntary. However, you can't access market spaces without getting a proper rating, and it really assists in terms of empowering and achieving the goals, the transformation goals that we have as a country. So to do it, if you're going to do it, you have to do it properly, and you have to do it within the boundaries of the law. And so they are adjusting that to make sure that fronting is something that gets stamped down on very, very quickly and effectively. Does that answer the question, Joe?
Yeah, it does. But I must say this entire process is most frustrating and debilitates the company enormously. But carry on.
That's why we're here, hopefully, to be able to assist in that process. Our membership is delivered via several channels. We've got our mobile app. We have our website with resources and tools. We have our membership experience team, and we have the software we provide to enable the scorecard and enable your verification. So if you log on to the app today, you're automatically an associate member. This is more for people who are just looking for information and updates. So you get access to the weekly newsletter, you get the subject webinars, open webinars that run on a weekly basis, occasionally more than once a week, and you get invitations to several of the events that we host. The paid memberships are the Practitioner membership and the Practitioner Plus. So the Practitioner membership is our core membership, and the Practitioner Plus is a services offering that will sit on top of the Practitioner membership. So this would need to be in place if you're going to take the Practitioner Plus. I'll go through these in a little bit more detail. The Practitioner membership, you have access to the weekly technical webinars. These are a lot more in-depth than the open webinars. They address subjects often that have been requested by our members that they're dealing with on a daily basis. So, we've addressed things like fraudulent affidavits. What channels do you have to investigate that? Workplace skills plans, what needs to go into those, how to optimize it, and make sure you're getting the most out of your WSP. You also have access to Yanil Padiachi. Now, Andrew spoke about Yanil. Yanil is widely respected as one of the most knowledgeable people in the country around the codes, around BEE, and he runs a team of specialists. They're there to give you as much support, help, guidance as you need. For instance, I mentioned these computers that we might have donated to a school. You might need to know things like what formula must you use to depreciate? What documentation do you need to provide to prove that? What must the school sign to be a valid agreement? You might have a workplace skills plan you need some guidance or help on, you need somebody to look over. That's what they're there for, and that is unlimited. So you have as much access to them as you require. We have a technical forum group. This used to be on WhatsApp. It's moved across to Telegram. The group got too large for the WhatsApp limit. Now we speak to the DTI and the B Commissioner on a daily basis, and often if there's updates, information, news coming out of those bodies, then we disseminate that on the technical forum group. People ask questions and they get answers from specialists on that group. And the great part about it is a very useful learning tool. Everybody learns from the engagements. Somebody in the audience might ask a question that I didn't even realize was an issue. So we all learn from each other's experiences there. We have several tools available. We've got the quarterly Tfm Magazine, which we publish. I got mine couriered to me the other day, and it's it has some very meaty subjects that give in-depth explanations about what's happening within the transformation space. The impact of import exclusions on preferential procurement. I mean, I can barely even say that sentence. So they go into quite a bit of detail, and it's a very informative magazine. The daily news, aggregated news feed gets delivered to the app. We have a resource library with every bit of documentation you need, very comprehensive video training library, and the body of knowledge is called the BBOC, where we keep all the gazetted codes in one place with additional expanded explanations where required. Now, we also provide, as part of the membership, our B-Smart software. The B-Smart software is customized for the various codes. We do have the BEP codes, so it is customized for the BEE sector. It has all the measurements as required. And the invitation I'm going to put out right now, and I'll repeat it at the end. If you want more information around the software or a demonstration on the software or pricing, please contact me. You can contact me through Brenda. My email will be on display at the end of the presentation. And we'd happily set up a short session with you to go through the benefits of the membership, to go through the software and to do a customized quotation for you. Now, it's very important to have software, and I think Andrew highlighted a lot of the areas that, the measurement areas that are very important to get right. And the reason we have the software is it's about efficiency. Points on a scorecard are not equal. So there's a discussion about the various points required to get to various levels. But 1 point under ownership or management control could potentially cost you in the millions. You may need to hire 2 or 3 senior managers in order to gain 1 point, and that could cost you $1 million or more. But 1 point under skills or under enterprise development might only cost you 50 or 100,000, depending on your environment. So it's very important to be able to have something that highlights that cost to point ratio, so you can identify where the low-hanging fruit is, so to speak. So you can build a strategy on focusing on the most cost-effective spend, and then your strategy will address the more expensive points if and when you need them. It's also about optimization and about efficiency, because you don't get more points for doing the same activity again and again and again. Once you've achieved your target on any line item, any given line item, you don't get more points for doing that same activity again. So it's about identifying how far you need to go, how many points you've gained. It's like pouring a cup of coffee. Once you've reached the top of the cup, you need to stop and you move on to the next cup. Otherwise, you make a mess all over the floor. And so the software is really there to be able to make your environment a lot more effective and guide your spend. Now, Practitioner Plus is a services offering that sits on top of the Practitioner membership. The standard member, Practitioner member, will have access to the software. They'll have access to all the resources. Practitioner Plus, we provide you with 2 specialists who will work with you on your scorecard. So you have unlimited access to your guidance through Unil's team. The 2 specialists will work with you in terms of identifying the data that needs to go into the scorecard. They will format that, they'll pull it into the tool for you, and then identify what your current scoring is and what gaps there are to achieve the targets that you have set. Every company is different. So some companies might need to absolutely be a level 2 to do government business. For another company, it might be a case of we just need to get out of non-compliance. So whatever your targets are as a company, we'll work with you. This is done on a quarterly basis, and they will update the data and go through the checks, identify your gaps, and work on that strategy with you. So this goes on a quarterly basis. We then do a pre-audit review at the end of your year, and we go through a verification preparation process, which is very stringent. We know exactly what is required, and we'll work with you to prepare your verification pack. So at the end of that quarter, you have a pack that can go on to your verification agent. And we'll look at this in a little bit more detail shortly. The tools that we have, the Tfm Magazine that gets shipped out quarterly, the daily news gets delivered to the app, aggregation from various news feeds, the video library, short to the point videos, easily indexed and delivered by subject matter experts. Sorry, I'm rushing through this a little bit because I don't want to take up more time than we have. The body of knowledge, the BBOC. The BBOC is all the gazetted codes in one place. The codes tend to be a bit fuzzy in some points, a lot of legalese and not terribly clear. So where that is the case, where there are additional explanations, we have those marked, and you can go and get the additional interpretations, definitions, and whatever else is sitting behind the codes. So that is all available for you on the BBOC. The BE Chamber Forum, this has moved across to Telegram, but Unil runs this, and our specialists, some of you may have met Frick, but the specialists all have access to this forum. People will ask questions, detailed questions, and get very clear, concise answers on the app as well. So once again, a learning experience for all. The resource library, any and every bit of documentation is available for you, from policy documents, fronting declarations, calculators, learnership agreements, bursary agreements, absorption trackers. Every bit of documentation is there. Very importantly, it's been drawn up by a lawyer. It has all the wording as required by the DTI, and it's in Word format. So you can copy and paste and put it onto your own letterhead with your own logo, and you would just need to customize it for the specific agreement. If you need something we don't have, we will actually draw that up on your behalf. I don't think this gets used terribly much anymore because that library is pretty comprehensive. The process for Practitioner Plus, we would normally start off in Q2 and work through. However, we have a lot of clients who are signing up in Q3 or Q4, and that is fine, and that doesn't really matter because we normally work on a 12-month basis. If you start in Q4, it's not a problem. What we would do is we'd bring all the data for the entire year into Q4, see what your scoring is, identify the gaps. Now, obviously, you don't have a lot of time left in order to adjust your spend, but there may be some activities you can perform, some training you can do, some donations you can make to be able to fill those gaps. But assuming we're starting from the beginning, in Q2, we'd have a kickoff meeting that would be understanding your business, understanding your environment and your goals. Because as I say, every company is different. We would then put a plan together to be able to meet the goals that you have set and that you need. We bring all the data into the tool, update it, see where we are, and then see where we need to go to, identify those gaps. We meet on a quarterly basis, so at the end of Q3, we go through the same process, update all the data, get it into the tool, see how we've tracked against those targets and against those gaps, and then readjust. Q4, we do the same process again, but we're closing out the year, make sure all the data is available and is in the tool, and then Q1 is spent preparing for verification. So that means preparing the data files that your verification agent needs. They will tell you what they want to sample, so we'll prepare those samples, make sure all the backing information is there, because it's vital that all of that information is correct. And we then prepare your verification pack. So at the end of the Q1, you'll be able to take your verification pack to your verification agent and be secure in the knowledge that you know exactly what is going on and that everything has been checked and double checked. Now, we can only access the tool with you. We don't do this independently of you. So everything we do is always in conjunction with yourself or with your, obviously, your designated individual. So the benefits of this, capacity challenges, you know, a lot of businesses, you don't have the luxury of having a dedicated transformation specialist. So often everybody who's dealing with BEE has a day job, have other things to do. So we are there to be able to automate a lot of these processes. You don't have to sit and type line by line by line because we automate that, automate the inputs into the tool. And it saves you time and saves you a lot of the effort in terms of the manual inputs into BEE. We don't expect that everybody's going to be the expert. There's the codes are complex and there are a lot of pitfalls, but we provide you with those experts. So you have two specialists, two experts working on your account. And the way they work is the one will work in terms of gathering the data, inputting in the tools, setting the targets. And what the other specialist does is they double check everything that happens. Because it is so important to make sure that our documentation and that our claims are free of risk, that every claim is a valid claim and that there are no mistakes. What we mean by visibility, I think probably a lot of people have experienced this, but in the last month of the year, some poor soul has to run around to HR, to procurement, to skills, and gather information about what has happened through the year. So, you know, you find out where did you spend, what did you spend, you put it all in the bucket and you throw it against the wall and you hope something sticks. And that's not really a strategy. That's a bit of a recipe for disaster. So by visibility, we mean as early as you can in the year, we're identifying what your current scoring is and what the gaps are, what you need to spend, where the most cost-effective spend is. And then we'll build a strategy around that. So you can go back to the various element owners, to the people in procurement or the people in skills, and you can say, you need to train the following demographics for the following amount. You go to procurement and you can say, look, you're buying too much from large corporates. You need to spend a bit more on EMEs or QSEs. So you can go and direct that spend so that you are maximizing the points in your scorecard rather than just hoping that somebody accidentally spent the right amounts in the right place. Level assurance, we've spoken about that. So we'll meet the targets that you require and we make sure that every claim obviously is a valid claim. As part of the service, we collect your BEE supplier certificates on your behalf. So up to 600 are included with the service. We create a database and that database ties in with the procurement section on the scorecard and it automates the scoring. So one of our clients signed up, they had 2 interns full-time just collecting certificates and they weren't doing a great job. So we managed to we took over that environment. Those 2 interns got reallocated within the business. Now they're now doing something a bit more useful with their time. And our team has now managed this certificate collection process. And if you think about it, there's 24 salaries a year that we managed to free up just by this one particular line item. You know, if you work out the cost of those 24 salaries, I don't know what it was, but it certainly paid for the service over multiple times. The practitioner membership on its own is a single membership, but if you do take Practitioner Plus, which is the services offering, we give you an additional 3 practitioner memberships, which means they have access to Yanil and his team, they have access to webinars and to the various resources that, that are available to the members. We've been through the process. The outcomes, we reduce any risk of fronting. Because we're checking and double checking everything and our experts know what to look for, we can make sure that there are no accusations of fronting and that every claim is a valid claim. And we meet your required BE level. So we'll put those plans in place. And of course, you're prepared for your audit. So because you've walked that journey together with a specialist, you know exactly what is going into your audit and into your verification pack. The requirements, the data needs to be available and it needs to be uploaded into the tool. And of course, any agreed to deadlines or timelines needs to be met. If those aren't met, we obviously can't guarantee any outcomes. If you need more information, if you'd like a quotation, more information, a demo on the software, please contact me. You can get hold of me through Brenda, but my email is very simple, paul@be.co.za. We do have the software, and the software is part of the membership. So we don't charge you additionally for the software. As a member, it is included. So we're going to be running out of time. I don't want to do too much, but let me just show you the front end of the software so that it's cloud-based, it's hosted on Amazon Web Service. Once you log on, if you sign up as a member, we don't have access anymore. The only time we have access, or our specialists have access, is together with yourselves. So we do that to protect you and to protect ourselves. And the reason for that is that there's no data exposures, there's no popular exposure because you're in control of your data at all time. So we have all the codes available. The construction BE codes are there. I'm not going to go into detail on this, but essentially,
sorry,
yes,
we're not
yes.
seeing your
I'm sorry. I need to
device
reshare.
that you're showing us.
I'm sorry. I need to reshare. Let me just do that, and there we go. Okay. You should be seeing that now. Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So we have the various codes. We have the construction BEP codes. I'm not going to go into this in detail. If anybody wants to a bit more of a deep dive, please contact me and let us know. We're happy to set up a short session. But essentially, we cover all elements of your scoring, your weighting, your bonus points. We deal through the various elements: ownership, management control, skills. Yeah, on construction and on BEP, skills is particularly complex. So we manage all elements of that, all the various intricacies in terms of your skills, the measurement, your points. Here it's very easy to see. I mentioned a bit earlier that the cost to point ratios are very important. So you can see, for instance, here there's 1 point available for skills spent on Black junior management with 10% of your target. So 1 point is 10%. But here for spend on Black executive senior middle management, there are 3 points at 15%. So 1 point here is worth 5%. So these points are cheaper than these points. So, you know, this just gives you a very easy view that you can identify where your most cost-effective spend is going to be, how many points you get for a particular category spend. So you can learn to focus very quickly. You can focus your spend and identify where you should be focusing. So I'm not going to go into a lot more detail. We do have the certificate management side where we collect your certificates on your behalf. We put this into a database. It automates the scoring. We measure all elements as in name, BE level, expiry date, VAT number, Black ownership information, and you can go in and view these certificates online. And you know, as a level changes, it'll automatically update on your procurement side. We have a little process we work here with the red X and the green tick. This is just an efficiency thing. You know, if I'm a supplier, your year is January to December, I'm a supplier. And on the first, 1st of February, my certificate expires. I'm now went from a level 2 to level 8. Using the latest certificate means you'd have to measure me as a level 8. However, because my certificate, my level 2 that's now old and expired, was valid for 1 day within your financial year, it's still considered valid for the entire period. So we don't always just use the latest certificate. We actually apply some thought to that and use the best certificate that is valid for the entire period. So that's what that green tick's about. You can create as many users as you require, and you can then give them access as per their job roles. So you can go and manage your users. You can select, create new users. Very simple to do when you create a user, and you would then edit that person's access as per their job role. So you have several fields that you can either grant or deny access to, and you can create a customized profile for that individual. And then, of course, one of the most used terms in BEE is "not my job." So if you're looking for information from somebody and they're just not forthcoming, if they do have a login to the system, you can see who's been on the system, what they've done, and when they've done it. So you can hold other people accountable. So this is the very high level view of the software. We can do a more detailed deep dive into that, but please do let us know. My email, let me just go back to that screen and make sure I'm sharing it. My email is there, paul@b.co.za, like a buzzing bee, be.co.za. And you can also contact us through Brenda, and please feel free to do so, even if you just want a brief chat, more information, quotation, or a more detailed look into the software. So Brenda, thank you very much. I'm going to hand back over to you to close out, and I think we are in good time. So thank you very much, and thank you for your time and attention.
Okay, thank you, everyone. I would have liked to have answered Joe's question, but I couldn't actually answer it in full totality. But just to say to you, to become CESA member firms, which all of you are already, you obviously need 51% of your owners to be professionally registered. But only 30% of that 51% needs to be professional engineers. And basically, I will have this discussion at our Manco meeting next week, because unfortunately, Joe has a very small number of staff. So adding one person onto ownership for BEE might affect his ratio with his ownership with CESA. But I'll have this conversation with our Manco and hopefully give you some more feedback at our HR forum meeting, which is coming up next. So that's basically that. I also wanted to mention that the School of Consulting Engineering, we're still part of CESA. We will always be part of CESA. It's your industry academy for CPD training. However, we are now in the school, and our publications are on an NPC company now. So we are a level 4 company with the association, because of the way the association is structured, was a level 7. The School of Consulting Engineering is now level 4. So I think you get 100% of your spend, which is a lot better. So please look at our website. I've talked lots about the HR forum in the school. So yeah, you can start doing that. Start looking at supplier development, considering the BCE development program for developing your suppliers. You also get your spend because it's CPD validated. And that's my little speech. But just basically, I would like to thank Paul and Andrew for giving the 2 presentations today. I found them incredibly informative, and especially to Arlene for organizing today and setting the various presentations up. So it is 12 o'clock. So what I'd like to do is, if there's no further questions, get hold of Andrew, Paul, and we'll take it forward from there.
Hello, Brenda.
Thank you, everybody. Have a lovely day. And I'll send I'll get the presentation from Andrew and Paul, And,
JP, you can stay on if you've got a question.
Yes, please,
okay,
Andrew.
that we can do. If anybody's got a question, Andrew says he can take some questions on the side here.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks for everyone for attending, and we hope to chat to you again soon. Anyone's got any questions, if you want to stay around, we'll stick around for 10 minutes or so. And thank you to CESA as well for hosting us. Really appreciate it. Thanks, Brenda.
Thanks, Brenda, for everything.
Thank you.
Been awesome.
JP, have you got a question? I see your mic's off.
Yes, thanks,
You're
Brenda. I think it's a question to Andrew.
Go for it, Andrew.
First of all, I just want to understand the construction sector codes have been around since end of 2017. It's 5 years later, and in the regulations, it did state that the targets will be altered after the first 3-year period. So, you know, some of the targets been adjusted since year 4. The question is with regards to the turnover thresholds, the 6 million and 25 million. With inflation 5 years later, is there a view that those will be reviewed in the near future?
JP, so I mean, it's a great question. They only review the legislation on a 5-year basis in theory. In practice, because the time frame that it takes to go through the engagement, stakeholder engagement, plus the DTI's process, you know, that can be 10 years. As you can see, you know, 2007 to 2013 was conceptually was going to be a 5-year process, but it moved on until 2016 when it was actually applied on the general codes finally. So the answer is yes. There's always intent to update the codes with these minor issues. There are changes to the codes, like 19 changes to general codes, and then there are amendments, which means they change the actual format of the code itself. In this case, we would be looking at a change potentially rather than an amendment, where they would just change the turnover numbers. However, at this point, I have heard no rumors of that happening. Obviously, I don't know if you know, but COVID really significantly sort of limited operations in the DTIC. So, you know, that's probably going to delay some of the activities by a number of years. So I can't tell you when it's going to happen. But if you think about the first version of the codes, you know, the EMEs and QSEs, turnover numbers were the same from 2007 until 2016 potentially, so 10 years. So this could be up to another 5 years time. Again, no one really knows because it depends on who wakes up in the DTIC and decides to do something. So I'm afraid my answer is not very helpful.
No, sure. Thank you very much. You know, okay. The second question is then there was talk about amendments to the, let's just call it the regulations and so forth, specifically in the construction sector. I'm not aware if anything has been further discussed, gazetted. Just briefly, what are those proposed amendments then? And so I just maybe need to understand if I need to plan for something in the short, medium future.
So again, I mean, the difficulty with this is that we just don't have visibility beyond the curtain that is the DTIC. We learned back in 2007 not to listen to rumor and not to even apply the public comments documentation because it changes significantly and the rumors generally don't end up happening. So when it comes to this, I'm afraid to say we just don't know. We have no clue if and when something's going to happen. We've got some very strange situations where, I don't know if you know, but the transport sector code is still on its original version. It hasn't even been amended and it's still being applied today. So you would think someone would have done something about that by now. So I'm afraid it is a bit of a nebulous environment. We can't tell you when what's going to happen. I don't know about any changes that are going to come out at this stage. We haven't heard any rumors about timelines or anything. And with the of the Construction Sector Council, I would guess, and this is just me guessing, I would guess we haven't got any changes coming out for a long time.
Okay, perfect. The last question then just goes back to the court case, what's it, back end of 2020 with regards to the, let's just call it the exclusion or the, you know, the EME QSE situation, where the minister was afforded the 12-month period to amend the 2017 regulations in the triple PFA. Just, is there anything happening in that space? First of all, I'm asking the question because, you know, we're consulting engineers. We need to apply the principles internally, but then the engineers also need to adjudicate contractors, tenders. So just what is happening in that space, please?
And again, I wish I could answer you. We've been engaging with various stakeholders actually on the issue. Trying to uncover what's going on, because we understood there was actually like a deadline for this. We understood that there was this is something that had to happen by a certain time. It hasn't. We've tried to find out if there have been a number of meetings. So we do know that there have been discussions. We don't know that there's any final documentation that's been put together at this stage after court cases, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, at this point, I wish I could give you answers. It's just I don't, you know, it's not in the public domain. It's got nothing to do with the act or the codes, and in terms of policy, government can do whatever they want internally, obviously within the limitations. We just don't have visibility. I wish I could help you. It's just something I don't know if anyone does have any visibility, but we definitely don't.
No, sure, perfect. Thank you. Appreciate it.
I hate having questions I can't answer. I just
no. It's
very clear.
It's perfect. Thank you.
Okay,
I
great.
see Leopold. Leo's got a question.
Hi, Andrew. Just to go back to JP's first comment about the 4-year targets, and if I understand it correctly, but I'd just like to confirm. So the Gazette was released on the 1st of December 2017. According to the Gazette, it says that it's on the 4th anniversary, which would be December 2021, if I understand correctly. And it says management periods beginning after this date. So in other words, if your financial year start is March 22 or March 21, I'm understanding it's only going to affect the company after that. Or if you can just clarify in terms of that 4th anniversary.
So it's got some interpretation. We have gone to the DTI as well as the commission on this. One of the versions is if you get, sorry, is someone speaking? No, okay. There was some on my speaker, I'm not sure where it came from. So one of the versions was if you have an audit after that date, then it needs to apply new rules. The feeling was that if your measurement period is, you know, up to 18 months prior to, that means you would be asked to apply this significantly earlier. So the sort of almost final position that we got to with the DTIC is that it's your measurement period, and the date of your audit is not considered in terms of the deadline. So as long as your measurement period ends after that date, you then have to apply the new targets. Does that make sense? Any questions on that?
Okay, understood.
And please feel free to engage us further on that if you've got a specific question, because we have the network in for asking these questions. We can ask any specific you might have and get you the answers. Sadly, not on the triple PFA for JP, but on BE we can.
Okay, we don't seem to have any more questions, unless anybody turns on their screen now. Wonderful.
Thank you so much for the opportunity, and thanks for collaborating with us so nicely. We really appreciate it, and appreciate the work you do.
Thank you very much. If you can send me your presentation, I'll send your presentations, I'll send them out. Okay, thank you so much, everybody. Have a lovely day, and I'll be sending this out shortly. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.